An arrest warrant has been issued in the femicide of Shanquella Robinson, but the statement made by the Mexican prosecutor makes it unclear if others will be charged. Why would they only charge one person, and who could it be? On November 23, 2022, nearly a month after Shanquella had been brutally murdered, the first arrest warrant was issued in her femicide. Authorities did not say who the target of the warrant is, but due to the statement released, it very much seems as if it's Daejhanae Jackson, as in the video released by Gerald from the North Carolina Beat, Daejhanae was the only one physically attacking Shanquella while everyone else stood around, watched, and encouraged the attack. Daniel De La Rosa Anaya, who is a prosecutor for the state of Baja California, Mexico, spoke to ABC News amongst other news outlets and said that the case is fully clarified. We have a court order. There is an arrest warrant issued for the crime of femicide to the detriment of the victim and against an alleged perpetrator, who is a friend of hers who is the direct aggressor. He clarifies that there was never a fight that went on, stating that it was not a quarrel, but instead a direct aggression, which is backing up what Shanquella's parents, Salamandra and Bernard, have been saying this entire time.
She wasn't even fighting back. They attacked her.
He goes on to say that we are carrying out the pertinent procedures such as the Interpol alert and the request for extradition to the United States of America. Interpol, for those who don't know, is an international criminal police organization which facilitates worldwide police cooperation, as it has 195 countries which have police forces a part of it. So it basically allows for information to be spread quickly amongst these police forces. The idea is that they're supposed to be able to help the country which issued the alert if they can. There are different types of alerts or notices. The first is the red notice, which is to seek the location and arrest of a person wanted for prosecution or to serve a sentence. This is the one that was issued in Shanquella's case. There's a yellow notice, which is to locate missing persons, often minors, or to help identify persons who are unable to identify themselves. There is a blue notice, which is to collect additional information about a person's identity, location, or activities in relation to a criminal investigation. So this also could have been issued in this case. They don't specify which one. They just make a general statement saying it was an Interpol alert. There's also a black notice, which is to seek information on unidentified bodies, a green notice, which is to provide warning about a person's criminal activities where the person is considered to be a threat to public safety, an orange notice to warn of an event, a person or object or process representing a serious and imminent threat to public safety, a purple notice, which is to seek or provide information on modus operandi, which is a Latin phrase for the mode of operating, which is the pattern of criminal behavior, objects, devices, or concealment methods, and an Interpol United Nations Security Council special notice, which is issued for entities and individuals who are the targets of UN Security Council sanction committees. I just want it to be so super clear that Interpol alerts do not typically mean a whole lot, and despite having a wide reach amongst all continents and majority of countries in the world, they aren't always effective or aren't typically effective, like rarely effective, at least in the cases that I have seen. So I guess it's nice that they did this, but it's not likely to be of any benefit to get the target of the arrest warrant in custody or in solving the case. It's very well likely that US authorities and Mexican authorities are just going to work together on this, but I guess they did that just in case Daejhanae or any of the other Cabo cowards, as they are now being referred to, have fled the country, which I doubt that they have. So in order for this process to happen, like the prosecution and everything, Daejhanae, who we are all assuming is the target of this warrant, will have to be extradited. So extradition is the legal process which allows a person suspected or convicted of committing a crime from one jurisdiction to another. So it allows them to be transferred. A person may be extradited for the purpose of criminal prosecution, interrogation, or for the purpose of carrying out a prison sentence or a detention order. The only arrest warrant that we know of has been issued for Daejhanae Jackson, allegedly. Warrants may also be issued for the other 5. The Mexican government may want to interrogate them. The most common cases of extradition by far are between Canada, America, and Mexico. You can only be extradited from Canada if the alleged crime or criminal conduct is recognized by both countries in question. But on May 4th, 1978, the US and Mexico government signed an extradition treaty which allows for the return of those who have committed crimes and fled across the US and Mexico border. So it doesn't matter if it's a crime only in Mexico or only in the States. If they want you to be extradited, they can put out that order, and the other government is to agree and to work together and collaborate on that. A person can be extradited for a number of reasons, according to CarmichaelLegal.com, but they say that the most common are murder, kidnapping, drug trafficking, terrorism, rape, sexual assault, burglary, embezzlement, arson, or treason, which is betrayal of the government, betrayal of your own government. The prosecutor finishes off his statement by adding that this is about 2 Americans, the victim and the culprit. This, to me personally, felt like an extremely odd thing to end on because it gives the impression as if this is the only person who they intend on charging or extraditing at this point in time, making it seem like it's a very open and shut case, which we now know that it is not. This is definitely not about two Americans only. There is alleged information that Shanquella was attacked by Winter Donovan and Alyssa Hyatt as well, but Khalil Cook and Malik Dwyer were also encouraging the attacks and filming them as well. It's wild to me how quickly they are acting now that so much public pressure has been placed on them, but before, they were just trying to deny and gaslight the family into thinking that nothing malicious had happened to Shanquella. So Salamandra spoke to ABC News on Wednesday night, right as the news broke, and said that I feel so good, that it's a good feeling, about the arrest warrant being issued. She said that this is what we have been waiting for, someone to be finally held accountable and arrested. She finishes her statement by saying that we cannot wait for justice to be served. She also said that she is happy that the FBI stepped in to help solve her daughter's case so that her death won't go in vain. Salamandra says that she would like to see each one of the Cabo cowards sent back to Mexico because their plan was to go back to America thinking that they would not be prosecuted, that they would be safe. She also says that Shanquella was a loving and caring person and that she wants everyone to remember that, rounding out the interview by stating, "We are going to keep her legacy alive." So in the last video, I defined femicide in great detail, but to just basically sum it up very quickly, it is the murder of a woman or a girl simply because they are a woman or a girl. Femicide is structured gendered violence based on discrimination, sexism, and misogyny. It takes advantage of any relationships of trust, kinship, authority, or other unequal power dynamics with the victim. But I didn't talk about how one knows that femicide has actually occurred. So according to a literature review published by the European Institute for Gender Equality and written by Dr. Bridget Sauer, Myrna Dawson, Anna Wiesik-Duranska, Barbara Spinelli, and a few others, they say that when identifying femicide, it is necessary to follow a procedure which identifies the different elements of killing to assess the contexts, circumstances, and individual behavior. The sex of the victim and the perpetrator, the type of relationship between the victim and the perpetrator, whether the attacker has incel-like behavior or ideology, which means that they have expressed a deep-rooted hatred for women, as well as history of domestic violence and previous institutional interventions in the country of the murder. Intentionality, gender-specific situations, and gender-specific motivations for the killing of the women must also be considered, but overarching themes are just basically patriarchy, sexism, and gender roles. It's also noted that femicide can happen in any setting. It is not limited to murders such as Shanquella's, but it can also be within the process of a bank robbery or other crimes in which they are in the act of doing one thing, but their hatred for women overrides themselves, so they commit assault or murder on a woman in the process. This review outlines that there are 3 levels of gender motivation and femicide. The first is gender-motivated behavior that is grounded in gendered culture, that is the general inequality of women and men, and the roles in patriarchy that have been dedicated to women and men. So men and women follow these cultural preferences or references. Women are constructed in patriarchy as being the property of men, whereas men are allowed to exercise their power and control over women, leading to femicide. The second is identifying where gender-motivated killings are located in society in the context where gendered behavior is practiced, and the situation in which the killing took place. So, for example, the gendered structure of intimate partnership or FGM. The third is when gender-motivated killings happen at the relational level between people, so such as what happened with Shanquella. I will leave a link to this report in the description if you are looking to learn more about femicide, the aggravating factors, definitions. It's really thorough and very well written, so I do recommend it, but it is kind of long, but you can find that link down below. If convicted of femicide in Mexico, any of the Cabo cowards can face 50 years and upwards in prison. If you enjoyed true crime cases from a critical decolonial perspective void of propaganda, you like the way that I've been breaking down the Shanquella case, then why aren't you subscribed? I regularly discuss true crime and break down cases in a similar format to this. So I just want to note right off the bat, Mexican authorities have not responded to multiple requests for comment from a variety of sources asking for an explanation into why the last report that was leaked is so different than the death certificate and the autopsy. Every single person involved or every single authority involved has a different timeline of events or a different explanation as to what went on. The point of bringing up the Mexican police report in the last video was to highlight how a different timeline had been given to American media and Shanquella's family. It was not to distract or take attention away from what truly happened to Shanquella, which is that she was attacked and beaten by members of the Cabo Cowards, aka the Cabo Six, who then took their time in contacting a doctor, lying to the doctor about what had happened. The doctor did not note any obvious external injuries which were present and indicating that she had been attacked. The Cabo Cowards then refused to let Shanquella go to the hospital. Shanquella was declared dead just before 6 p.m., not 3:15 p.m. as the death certificate stated, over 3 hours after the initial call was made requesting medical attention in the villa. Then, the Cabo Cowards requested $5,000 from Salamandra and Bernard after Shanquella had already died. Bringing this up was to point out that the Mexican authorities had lied. They had tried to cover up what really happened to Shanquella, and American authorities did as well. People keep talking about how corrupt Mexican officials are, but let's not leave American officials out of this conversation. They too were just trying to cover up Shanquella's death. If they did not receive the immense public pressure and backlash, it's very likely that they would have been able to achieve and participate in this cover-up. The public would never know what happened to her, and her family would never get the justice that they deserve. Many have pointed out since I posted that video that cardiac arrest is very common after severe spinal injuries. And in the first video that I made about the case, I broke down the different types of spinal injuries that occur, and I mentioned that there's a possibility that Shanquella was paralyzed due to her injuries. So this is still a possibility, and that would explain why when the doctor first arrived, Shanquella was unresponsive, meaning that she was slowly dying in that villa for hours, surrounded by the very people responsible for her death. The purpose of highlighting this report was to further hit home the fact that everyone, Mexican and American authorities, the villa where they were staying, and of course the Cabo Cowards were lying and trying to cover up Shanquella's murder from the very beginning. I very personally am very anti-prison, very anti-police, but when covering cases like this, I think it's important to put my own personal feelings to the side when the family is advocating for those things as their means of obtaining justice and closure about what happened to their loved one. After all, this happened to them. It did not happen to me. It did not happen to you. For the family's sake, I hope that their wishes get fulfilled, that the Mexican authorities do not drag this out, and that all of the Cabo Cowards get charged and extradited to Mexico as well. Please continue to share and donate to the family's GoFundMe. That link can be found in the description.